Welcome to Leaders with Leverage. I'm Susie, and I'm super excited today because I have I'll have to say a really dear friend. People are going to be like, Susie, you have the best friends. And I'm going to be like, yes, I totally do. I'm here with Todd Porch. And I'll tell you really quick before I let him go. He's currently the president of Strategist. But throughout his career, he has done some amazing things working at Yahoo with Mark Cuban. I want to hear a story there. Was an executive with Comcast in a few different roles, and just has had this really impressive resume of leadership positions. And in fact, oversees, which I want you to tell us about, oversees a leadership executive program that has had such success. So welcome, Todd Porch. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Susie. I appreciate it. I'm humbled to be invited to have a conversation with you in this forum. I mean, it's fun because we've sat at many a coffee
Yep.
table over the years and shared, meaningful stuff that I think has shaped and guided all of our interactions and in the different costumes that we've worn. But thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, and the costumes. Yeah, we have some really great conversations, and that's why I was super excited to let's just have one of those. Like this is just two friends like talking about their lives and leadership. But I'd love for you, tell me about your journey. Like maybe highlight some inflection points for you that as you grew as a leader, what were some of those influences to get you where you are today?
Yeah, as I've grown as a leader, I've always put a ton of stock in um, folks that have gone before me
Hmm.
and served as mentors and encouragement and challengers to me. I've tried to surround myself with people that encourage, but also drive me to do things that I probably would be afraid to or venture out to do on my own. So,
Hmm.
there's a handful of those folks in my life. Some family, some friends, some business folks, and so I would tell you I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of those folks in my life and that aren't afraid to call me on my BS, if you will. They speak the truth in love, and they speak the truth in challenge to me. So and that starts. I think that goes all the way back to high school, right? I mean, coaches that I looked up to that pushed me to do things that I didn't think I could do. College, it was fraternity brothers that were way smarter than I was and challenged me to dig deep academically or experience wise. In my career, they've been bosses and peers. And over probably the last, what I consider one of the phases that I'm in the midst of right now is, educational, academically, there are people pretty involved at the University of Denver, the Daniels College, and there's a handful of folks there that God, it make me sharpen my sword every time I walk in that place because I'm just afraid I'm going to say something stupid. So, um, and they've given me a platform to teach a couple of classes there. And you mentioned the Leadership Academy. That's a passion that I have that I feel completely inadequate doing, and we do it once a year and have for the last 10 years. And I do that with a professor partner who has been an enterprise executive for a big Fortune 25 brand, and locking arms with that guy and allowing him to rub off on me over the last 10 years has been a gift as well. So those mentors and friends and peers that, if I boiled it down, I would say speak the truth to me and challenge the fire out of what I do every time I put my feet on the floor in the morning. So,
Wow. So it really to you all through your career, you surrounded yourself with the right people. Because I was going to ask you, how did you make the shifts? Like, how did you decide to move from one big job that you were having success at to the next? And how did that come up? People often are like, did you have a forecast? How was that for you?
No, for lack of a better way to describe it, I tried. I think early on in my career. I mean, look, I started my career in telecom, selling, and I learned the art of the sale, of building relationships, and
Hmm.
getting to know kind of truly what issues business owners had, and how could I use what was in my toolbox to be a multiplier for them and solve their problems. And I learned the value of that, and moved from I moved from sales into customer retention because I maintained those relationships, and knew that if I could continue to add value, there would be opportunities to sell more. Really, I'd love to say it was really strategic, and I had this master plan and this roadmap that
Ha 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 ha.
I just checked the boxes, and every day I took a step forward. I think it was, more realistically, it was, I failed enough to where I learned what worked and what didn't, and then I continued to try to move to what worked. And at the end of the day, I'm a relational person, so pleasing people, especially that you work with or for or on behalf of, is a big piece of that. I would say that's really, really smart, but it's really, really risky too, because if you fall into the trap of only trying to please people, there are other repercussions that might not be as positive. But I've been able to keep that pretty good balance of that. So look, I've always tried to look at where businesses need to go, and be really authentic about how I could add value, realistic, practical value, and frankly, those moving in those directions in my career have always afforded opportunities that have come about. So it wasn't necessarily I had this grand vision, this grandiose vision where I was like, okay, hey, if I do this, this, and this, then it's gonna net in that. It's been more I've just kind of flipped the right rocks over in the midst of, and then been good enough at sales to convince somebody that they should hire me to do what I would want to do. So I've never been in a job that I didn't like.
Hmm.
And I've always, kind of moved forward in roles because I moved towards things that were interesting to me or that I was passionate about. And then I get to overlay relationships and, results along the way. So, um, you know, moving from a sales role into a retention role was great. Um, tend to gravitate towards more operational things. So I love to put stuff together, and I love to optimize stuff and make it work, more efficiently. Because when you do that, you tend to get more investment, and more investment, creates freedom to do cool and fun stuff. So um, that was my time at Sprint. I take a ton of, I mean, in this day and age, to say I've worked for 4 companies, it is pretty odd because of our
Hmm.
culture of moving, quickly. So I think if you looked at my history, at about 7.5 or 8 years is when I start to itch and need something new or a new jersey to wear. So I was at Sprint for 9 years. I was at Yahoo for 14. I was at Comcast for about 9. And I've been in my current role for the last couple. And man, am I knee deep and having a ton of fun, but have a lot more to do. So
Hmm. So when I look at that resume and I look at the steps you took, they seem like really big steps. Like your feet didn't quite fit in the footprints, if you will. So people are often say to me like, "But I don't feel like I have enough experience to take that next step." And when I listen to you, I hear a lot of confidence. But talk me through, how do you get yourself, your mindset right to go, "I have enough to fill this." Talk to me.
whether it's personally or professionally, I think I get when I literally, this is a little bit of a secret to my
Oh,
idiocy,
good.
but like I literally audibly every morning look myself in the mirror and say, "Don't screw this up.
Really?
Don't screw this up today." And I've
Wow.
done that probably for the last oh gosh, I don't know, 23 years. And it goes back to exactly what you're talking about. I've been fortunate enough where people have believed in what they thought I could do, to be
Mm,
put in roles that I probably should never have been put in. Um, I remember walking into, so when I was at Sprint, I started at Sprint in Denver and moved to Chicago to kind of prove out a business concept that the company had, and it worked. The proving out worked, and ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, and we were hiring 300 folks to build this division, and I, I remember thinking, oh God, I hope they don't figure out who they've got in charge of this deal. Like they would fold it up tomorrow and leave, or take it away. And so that's literally when I started to say, boy, I hope I don't screw this
mm,
up. And so, when you kind of enter into that mindset, I think it makes you mind your mouth, and really ensure that you're actually thinking about what you're about to say before you say it. I have that horrible problem of sometimes my mouth runs at 100 miles an hour, and my brain has to catch up. And I'd say discipline that I've got to be really really conscious of to make sure that I'm listening and not planning on what I'm about to say, but that I give a level of thought to that. But look, the bottom line is, throughout my entire career, to your words, not mine, I've had to put on shoes that I didn't feel adequate to put on.
mm.
And so, uh, you know, it's an exercise in discipline of really making sure that I'm doing my homework and doing the stuff that I need to do to think about, before I believe I've got the opinion that should prevail. Um, I shoot, Susie. I mean, there isn't a day today, in my current role, as the president of Strategist, that I feel adequate filling those shoes.
Mm.
The demons. There definitely is there's the stable of folks that I talked about earlier that are my encouragers and folks that speak the truth to me, and they sit on one side, and then there's the devil on the other side that tells me that I'm not adequate and that I don't have the experience to sit in the chair that I sit, and that that I'm liable to screw something up if and so it makes you, it paralyzes you. So there's a bit of balance that you've got to enter every day with, and you really have to ensure that I really have to ensure that I've got the right people kind of behind me that are giving me that truth, that allows me to lead effectively and efficiently and productively. That's kind of at the end of the day today. That's really what fills my bucket, is if I feel like I led folks, um, individuals and organizations and teams and initiatives. If I have the ability to lead, um, and leading isn't necessarily standing up on the box and pointing and giving direction. It's listening and providing a perspective and asking really good questions. Then I feel like I've been successful.
Yeah. You used to, I would love to get in your head a little bit around when does that imposter syndrome come up? Like, can you think of even like speaking in front of the group and maybe some thoughts that you had, or, why didn't they ask me about that? Or tell me
Yeah.
a little bit.
So, I mean, this week in particular, I had an opportunity. You mentioned earlier that I founded a leadership program here in Denver that I've had the blessing to be able to be a part of for the last 10 years. We kicked off the ninth cohort of that program on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week. So 26 participants, all kind of executive, newly minted executives. So these people are hungry and excited, and they've been successful. They got a strong track record. All that represent different disciplines. There's engineers and finance folks and HR people and sales folks and operators, and we put them all into the same room, and we have the opportunity to kind of, this first couple of days of this program is all about level setting and getting, kind of shedding egos and, building a foundation that we're going to build on for the next 9 months. We'll get to spend a day a month with these folks. And, I literally had this out of body experience on Monday morning, when I stood up in front and kind of explained the story of the Leadership Academy. And, I rose up above and was kind of watching myself going, dude, who in the world do you think you are to think that these people have any interest in what you have to say? And
Oh,
we know that this is a successful program.
yeah.
One, nothing lasts for 10 years if it doesn't have meaningful
Mhm.
impact. And so, the metrics, the success metrics, and how we measure, whether or not, it's what we invest in is meaningful over this 9 month period. We know that it is. I mean, people have looked back as they walk across the proverbial graduation stage and say, "This is the best development program I've been involved in my entire career." And these people have been around companies for 10, 15, 20 years. So there's
Mm,
not a shortage of experiences there. So we know it's meaningful, and we know it works, and we know it makes an impact, and it changes how people lead. But man, that little guy on the right side was like, dude, you have no business
yeah.
standing up in front of these people and expressing your opinions, for goodness sakes. Um, or maybe you should tell them about the 37 times you failed, not the 3 times you were successful. Um, but so it manifests itself in really monumental times for me. But then it can be driving the car or sitting on a conference call with my leadership team, and somebody asks for feedback, but they don't ask for mine first. It's like, oh well, obviously they don't care about your opinion, or
Mm,
others are more important.
mhm.
I sit around a leadership table with my leadership team every Wednesday. And, if I don't, I mean, I've had to learn in my current role that it's not, my role isn't always to talk. It's a lot of times to
Mhm.
listen and frankly, encourage through the nonverbals.
Yeah.
And so, it's a man. This is all a lesson or a case study in growth in
Mhm.
careers and learning how to move between passages. I guess there's a HBS professor named Ram Sharon who wrote a book called The Leadership Pipeline. It talks about these passages of leadership from individual contributor all the way up to organizational owner or shareholder. And if you don't move between those passages effectively, you end up operating levels below what the role you're in
Mhm.
dictates. And that has downstream effects for everybody on your team.
Yeah.
So it's certainly an exercise in trying to do the right thing, and being vulnerable enough to say when you don't do the right thing, hey, I was wrong. I,
Yeah.
and that those, I think those times are even more monumental than the times that you're right.
Yeah. It's so true. And what made me what I'm pulling from this too is as leaders disrupting our habits or the way we jump in.
Hmm.
I was working with an executive recently and I just was observing that he is the one that jumps up to the whiteboard or he's the one that answers a question first and he's not teaching, he's not delegating. He's not creating silence so that the other people will take the lead.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we don't even see some opportunities, and that's what I'm hearing you say.
Well, look, in roles that we've served in previous parts of our career, you get comfortable and you perform, and because of that, you're elevated.
Mhm,
Um, but your DNA, what's natural is to revert back to what made you successful in the previous role or two.
mhm,
And if you do that again, I think you're cheating the folks that work in those current roles, because then they don't have space to
mhm.
operate.
Yeah,
They don't have space to lead. They don't have space to impact. And so it has this ugly downstream effect,
Mm-hmm.
and cripples organizations. Frankly, I think I would from a macro perspective, I would say that I think that's a big problem in corporate America today, is that we've got executives that are operating 2 or 3 levels beneath where they should be, and that hinders the ability for macro level growth.
Mm-hmm.
So when we teach, when we have the opportunity to teach and to influence, that's one of the big things. I talk about this concept with my team all the time,
Mm-hmm.
because it's got to become kind of just general nature that they're thinking about, in my current role, in my position,
Yes.
am I doing the thing? Am I spending the time today that allows me to operate in the right space, for the company? And that's really, really vital, I think, to them getting what they need to, but also their people having the space to operate.
Oh my gosh. The two things you just said that were brilliant were making space for others and making space for yourself to show up differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about now you're in a position where the buck stops with you. So how has that shift from being an executive within an organization? People don't think about what is that difference? Tell us. Not everybody's going to be the president of a company. I'm not. So do you tell me?
So look, I mean, here's a prime example, and it's a bit counterintuitive. I think, I keep talking about, this era and today and our corporate culture, where it stands, in, kind of the current space. Um, I think we're over stimulated by the information that is available at any given time during
Mm-hmm.
the day. I think we're overtaxed with all of the different, technology that we have to maintain, a pulse on and keep up with. I think we spend way too much time checking boxes, and moving between, tactics and transactions versus strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and meaningfulness. Um, I sat with my leadership team this morning. We meet every Monday morning, as a leadership team and as a whole company, and we meet every Friday morning to kind of wrap up the week, as a leadership team and as a whole company. So I meet with my leadership team first, and we kind of walk through. Hey, here's what we did. Here were our successes and failures of the day, or of the week, and then we transition into an all company meeting, where everybody on the company is there, and we celebrate and recognize, and we talk about what we're going to do next week and what's on the books. And there's finance folks on those calls, and sales folks, and different disciplines are represented. On my leadership team meeting this morning, I encouraged my guys to do, and gals to do, something different next week, and that was, I want them to turn off their computer. I want them to get out of their, whether they're working remotely. Sorry, I don't know how to turn.
That's okay.
I don't know why it's ringing.
It's the weirdest sound that I've heard. All right, it stopped. There you go.
There we go. I asked my team to do something different next week, and that was turn off everything, get out of where they currently work, whether it's remotely or in the office. And I asked them to walk around a park, or sit on a park bench, or go to a Starbucks that they don't know everybody at, and think for 2 hours. And I think taking time to think
Yes.
about business, their team, the individuals,
Yeah.
their customers. And I asked them next Friday for the leadership meeting to come back with a story about what they thought about and how that manifested itself in, an exchange, for their team or for our customers. And I'm fired up about kind of hearing what comes out of that, because I don't think we spend enough time thinking. I think we do a lot. I think
Yeah.
there is no shortage of emails, voicemails, Slack messages, Teams messages, Zoom calls that we fill the back to back to back. I mean, I hate back to back. I hate when people say, I got
Yes.
back to back meetings, because to me that says, okay, you don't have control over your schedule. Your schedule is controlling you. Um, if we make space for that thinking, I think that changes the dynamic. Whether you manage 3 people or 300 or 3,000.
Yeah. That is so good. That is something that I have to post about, but I hope that people are listening. What a great exercise, even just to do it for themselves.
Well,
Two
yeah, and
hours to think.
do it one time, and I bet you carve
Yeah.
out time every week.
Yes. Go.
And my encouragement to the people that we were that we've encouraged to do this, they just come back with stories about meaningful things that happen on the backside of that, and it
Yeah.
becomes a discipline. I'm not much of a journaler, but that just reflection time, I think, really pours fuel on the ability to lead and lead in a differentiated way.
Yeah. That was so good. So good. Well, one thing that I want to do that I always have to do, and you won't be surprised, is talk about negotiation. And
Yeah.
since you come from sales roots, you think about leverage and framing and silence, and anchoring your BATNA. I'd love for you to tell me what's your favorite strategy and how do you incorporate it into your leadership?
The age old BATNA, love that. Never thought
BATNA,
of
yeah.
that. Yeah, I love it. My strategy in negotiation, and you write about this, in your book, and we've had a lot of conversations. Um, I'm a talker, and it takes a lot for me to keep my mouth shut or not express my opinion. And I feel like, from a negotiation perspective, the less I talk, the better. You can gain so much ground with letting
Yeah.
other people talk, and allowing the awkward silence to create a forcing mechanism that exposes positions, that exposes maybe weaknesses or cracks in another person's perspective or position. So yeah, I would say, Susie, that is I try to exercise that just as much as I can, is to allow that silence to occur. And if I do that appropriately, I tend to learn a lot more, because
Hmm.
folks want to fill that silence with things that I can then use to my advantage
I
in
love
the
it.
exchange.
And I just want to put a exclamation mark too. There's a difference between uncomfortable silence and awkward silence. Like
Yeah,
let it linger. And
yeah,
that's where it gets
absolutely.
interesting.
Well, a lot of times people think about negotiation in business deals, but there's also negotiation in coaching of
Hmm.
leaders,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And oftentimes that silence will allow me or my leaders to solve the the problem, or remove the obstacle that we were talking about in the first place.
Yeah.
So that you allow them that space to solve their own problem. And I'm a big believer that people, if they people that put their fingerprints on whatever the solution is versus just being told how to solve it,
Yeah.
oftentimes actually solve it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
It is good stuff. And it's funny sometimes just in a one-on-one with an executive, and I don't really feel like I brought my full self. If I just ask a few questions,
Mm,
they're the ones that come with the brilliance. And they're like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, you're amazing. And I'm like, I didn't do anything.
sat here and listened,
Yes.
and
Gave the
encouraged you,
space.
and probed you.
Yep.
Good
The
stuff.
space. It goes back to the space. All silence is giving people space to think through. That's so good.
I just
Um,
noticed that my dog George is in the background.
I know. So people have to watch this on YouTube so they can meet George. And Charlie's right here. So we're there in
Yeah,
good company. But
that's
I've tripped over Charlie a couple times.
right.
Well,
George
Todd,
makes it good days. So yeah,
thank you, George. Thank you, George, for joining us. Todd, thank you so much. I feel like the time just flew by. How should can people reach out to you on LinkedIn? Like what?
so, absolutely. Todd Porch is my name. I work for a company called Strategist. I work with an awesome group of people that make me better every day. Happy for folks to reach out. Um, Look, I'm humbled to be a part of your program, and I love the work that you're doing. It is a multiplier. So
Thank
thanks
you.
for what you do and how you do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, make Todd your friend too. So reach out to him and thanks for joining us. Feel free to drop either of us a note and follow both of us. And again, this has been Leaders with Leverage, and both Todd and I appreciate you.
Thank you all.